Let's get on the record in case number 565224 in the matter of the state of Texas versus DeAndre Lamont Coleman. Mr. Coleman, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you given your attorney, Mr. Cornelius Cox, and this court permission to go forward with this proceeding via video conference, also known as the Zoom app, which is what we're using right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please stand by, Mr. Coleman. Can I get announcements from the attorneys and from probation, please?
Taryn Delgado for the state, Your Honor.
Cornelius Cox for the defendants.
Martinez for probation, and there's two witnesses here from probation, Catherine Ledger and Gerald Wright.
Catherine Ledger, Cat Ledger, and Mr. Gerald Wright. Okay. These are the POs that will be testifying. All right. Any housekeeping matters we need to take care of before we start with opening arguments and testimony, evidence, and then closing arguments? Anyone?
We just asked that the rule be invoked, Judge.
Okay, so that means that the two witnesses, Ms. Cat Ledger and Mr. Wright, need to be put into a breakout room, and then whoever calls them as a witness needs to let us know they're calling them as witnesses so we can bring them back in to testify. Okay. Marie, can you assist with that?
They've already been removed, Your Honor.
Okay.
I was working on it, but she's faster.
She's faster. Okay. So the rule has been invoked by Mr. Cornelius Cox. I now need to swear Mr. Coleman in. Please raise your right hand, Mr. Coleman. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? Should you make a false statement or should you lie to the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, he swears to tell the truth. You may put your hand down.
My client, we invoke his right to remain silent at this time.
Okay, that's your prerogative. At this time, Mr. Delgado, I'm sorry, let's go back to Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman, I just need you to listen. Back on the 14th day of March of 2018, you submitted an application for community supervision. That's called probation. At that time, Judge Crystal Chandler granted you that request with the understanding that you were going to follow her court orders and you were going to follow the conditions of probation as laid out in her court. On that day, I am confident that Judge Chandler admonished you and warned you that if you were to come back before the court, because the state files a motion to revoke your probation, alleging that you were not following the orders issued and alleging that you were not complying with your conditions of probation. And after a hearing, which we're at today, Mr. Coleman, and after the court hears from the state, from you, Mr. Coleman, from probation, and from your attorney, Mr. Cox, if the court determines that you have indeed violated conditions of probation, then you were warned on the 14th day of March of 2018, and I'm going to warn you again right now and remind you that you could face the full range of punishment for this offense all over again, Mr. Coleman. And the range of punishment for this offense can be up to, but no more than 1 year of incarceration at the Bexar County Jail. In addition to jail time, Mr. Coleman, the court could fine you up to $4,000. And for this offense, Mr. Coleman, you could lose your Second Amendment constitutional right to bear firearms, have guns, and handle ammunition. So, Mr. Coleman, two questions. Do you understand why you're here? Mr. Coleman? Do you understand? Okay. And do you understand the possible outcome of today's hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Stand by, sir. At this time, the court will hear from the state first. Mr. Delgado, why are we here today?
Yes, Judge. We are here to allege the violations. We'll start with condition number 2. On or about the 12th day of October in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, DeAndre Lamont Coleman, did then and there illegally use a controlled substance, namely cocaine,
What
in
year?
violation of condition number 2.
What year?
2018.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else?
We also allege condition number 2 as well again. On or about the 12th day of October, 2018, in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, DeAndre Lamont Coleman, did then and there illegally use a controlled substance, namely marijuana, in violation of condition number 2. Again, for another violation of condition number 2, on or about the 19th day of September 2018 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant DeAndre Lamont Coleman did then and there illegally use a controlled substance, namely marijuana, in violation of condition number 2. We would also allege a violation of condition number 10 in Bexar County, Texas, between the date the defendant DeAndre Lamont Coleman was placed on community supervision and the date of filing hereof for supervision fees, urinalysis fee, Crime Stoppers, court costs, fine. The defendant should have remitted $1,090, but has only remitted $24 in violation of condition number 10. Violation of condition number 14, on or about the 31st day of October 2018 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, DeAndre Lamont Coleman, did then and there fail to complete 40 hours of community service restitution in violation of condition number 14. And finally, violation of condition number 16, on or about the 31st day of October 2018 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant, DeAndre Lamont Coleman, did then and there fail to apply for, provide documentation of attendance, and comply with all rules, regulations, instructions, and financial agreements as directed by the court and or supervision officer and or head of or authorized personnel of the following program, anger management class, in violation of condition number 16.
Okay. So, Mr.
And
Coleman,
we
and
stand
let
mute.
me be clear on something, Mr. Cox. Is it your position that Mr. Coleman is not going to answer any questions I ask him today? Is that your position?
At this point, Judge, I can't foresee if the court is going to question him at this point. He's not going to make any statements at this point, Judge.
Okay. For cosmetic purposes, I'm going to ask him the question. If he doesn't answer, we'll put on the record Mr. Coleman refuses to answer the question. So, Mr. Coleman, the state is alleging that on September 19th of 2018, you violated condition number 2 by testing positive or for marijuana. The way they put it is that you use marijuana. Is that true or not true?
We stand mute to all the allegations, Judge.
Okay, so Mr. Coleman is refusing to answer to that allegation. Mr. Coleman, the state is alleging that you violated condition number 2 on the 12th day of October of 2018. They state that you used cocaine. Mr. Cox is representing Mr. Coleman will not respond to that allegation. And that the state is alleging that you violated condition number 2 yet again on the 12th day of October of 2018 by also testing or using marijuana on that day in violation of condition number 2. Mr. Cox?
Stand mute, Judge.
Okay, so the message from Mr. Cox is that Mr. Coleman is asserting his Fifth Amendment right and is refusing to answer to these allegations. We have additional allegations, Mr. Coleman, that you violated condition number 10, that between March 14th of 2018 and November 13th of 2018, that you accrued fees for drug testing that amounted up to $1,090, but that you only paid $24 of that outstanding balance for drug testing in violation of condition number 10. And Mr. Cox is asserting his client's Fifth Amendment right not to testify or state any response to that allegation. The next allegation, Mr. Coleman, is that you violated condition number 14 by failing to comply with court-ordered community service and restitution by the 31st day of October of 2018. Mr. Cox is asserting Mr. Coleman's Fifth Amendment right not to testify against his own interests and will not answer to that allegation. And the last allegation is that Mr. Coleman violated condition number 16, that by the 31st of October of 2018, he had failed to comply with court-ordered anger management classes. And Mr. Cox is representing that Mr. Coleman is asserting his Fifth Amendment right not to answer questions, specifically the allegation that he violated condition number 16. So, Mr. Delgado, those are your responses or lack thereof under the Fifth Amendment right that Mr. Coleman has not to respond. So how does the state want to proceed?
State would first like to call as a witness CLO Gerald Wright.
Can we bring in Mr. Wright, please? Mr. Wright, you've been called as a witness by Assistant District Attorney Taryn Delgado. I do need to swear you in, Mr. Wright. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury should you lie to the court, Officer Wright?
I do.
You may put your hand down, Mr. Wright. If listen closely to Mr. Delgado's questions. You'll probably get some questions from Mr. Cox as well. Answer the question asked only. If you can't understand the question, if you need it repeated for any reason, please let them know so that they can accommodate your request. If you need to take a break, let us know so we can accommodate your request to take a break. Okay, and just remember, Officer Wright, that our court reporter can only take a record of one person speaking at a time. So the attorneys know to let you finish answering your question before they ask the next question. I just ask that you wait until they finish their question before you start answering any questions, Mr. Wright. Okay, with that, Mr. Delgado, the witness is yours.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Wright, could you introduce yourself by saying and spelling your name for the court?
Gerald Wright, Gerald Wright.
And Mr. Wright, how are you employed currently?
I am employed with adult probation in Bexar County, Texas.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Wright, can you kind of walk us through what that looks like for you a day in your job with adult probation?
I'm a court liaison officer for County Court 7 currently. I began my career in 2011, I believe, in Bexar County probation. I began with County Court 13 with Monica Gonzalez and then Crystal Chandler, and then County Court 2 with Judge Uzamba, and then 226 with Judge Vela, and then back to County Court 7 with Judge DeLeon, and I'm currently the CLO for Judge Lira in County Court 7.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. And on the date of March 14th, 2018, were you the CLO that handled the terms and conditions for one DeAndre Coleman?
Yes, I was, according to the conditions my signature is on.
And well, first off, do you recognize the defendant in the courtroom?
No, I do not recognize him.
Okay. Judge, could I ask that the defendant remove his mask?
Yes. Can you pull it down a little bit more, Mr. Coleman? Okay, you may re-ask the question, Mr. Delgado. You can put it back on.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Wright, do you recognize the defendant?
No, I'm sorry. I would not recognize him after 6 years. And I'm assured that being the CLO in County Court 13, he was most likely an inmate when we did the conditions. Therefore, I had about a 5-minute conversation with him.
Okay. Would you recognize the terms and conditions of the probation?
Absolutely.
Okay. And just to preface this, Judge, Raven Pena will be showing that. Would I have permission to publish the terms and conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Raven.
Your Honor, if I may,
you were giving. You were sent copies of all this, Mr. Cox, I believe, as part of preparation for your contested MTR. If you haven't,
microphone.
If you have, yes, please use the microphone, Mr. Cox. There's a little handheld microphone that we need you to speak into. If you haven't seen these conditions of probation, then don't put them up yet, Mr. Delgado. I need you to email it.
Raven, can you stop?
Email it over to Mr. Cox, and we're going to take a 5-minute recess for him to be able to review those because I got to ask him if he objects to the exhibit. Okay, so.
Yes,
Let's go ahead and stop the share function, please.
Mr. Delgado, I think Mr. Peña sent those over to Mr. Cox.
Can we stop the share, please, so we don't have a black screen?
Yes, Raven's screen froze. I believe she's trying to fix it currently.
So it is 2:27, 28, 29, 31, 2 at 3:30. I'm sorry, 2:33. We're coming back on. Mr. Cox, I need you to review the proffered exhibit, and then I'll hear any objections that you may have to that exhibit. Just so that you're aware, Mr. Cox, I have those as part of the client's file, and the court has access to that under the MP360. I'm sorry, the File 360 app that the judges use. So I've already reviewed that stuff as part of my preparation for today's hearing. I just wanted to apprise you of that, Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Judge. One more thing, Judge. I'm not sure if this session is on YouTube, but
it is. It is.
My client objects to it.
Okay. Well, then he already consented to us using Zoom and the video conference and everything. It's public courts. So the public is entitled to watch. Just like everybody watches your friend, Judge Boyd, Mr. Cox. I'm sure you don't go in there objecting to it being published in there. So it's the same rules in here, Mr. Cox. All right. So well, his request is denied.
Okay, but the court making a reference to what I may or may not do in other court. I don't
Mr. Cox, we're not going to entertain that. I'm just pointing out an inconsistency in your request. So your request is denied. You can take 5 minutes to review the proffered exhibit if you want. We're going to come back on at 2:33. Everyone is excused for now. The court sits in recess.
Thank you, Judge.
Olga, back on the record in case number 565224 in the matter state of Texas versus Mr. DeAndre Lamont Coleman. I just want a housekeeping matter here. For the record, I did contact general counsel for county courts at law to get an opinion on my denial of Mr. Cox's request to stop the YouTube and to stop the Zoom. And my denial of that request stands based on the legal opinion tendered to me by our general counsel. So we're going to proceed, Mr. Cox.
And if I may, Judge, someone just tried to send me a document. I haven't had a chance to review it. But my position at this point, Judge, is that based on the court's comment about my conduct in another court, I'm going to move that the court one second, Judge. I'm going to request that the court recuses itself. I don't feel, well, in our file, I don't have an opportunity at this point to file a written motion, but I'm going to make an oral request that based on the court's comment about me and what I may do in another court with reference the court's position in this court, that the court recuses itself. I don't think that
we've got your objection. You repeating it 2, 3, 4 times, Mr. Cox. Stop right there. Stop right there, Mr. Cox, or I will hold you in contempt of court. My statement about your behavior in another court was not a statement on the facts of this case. You have not established any predicate to ask that I be recused from this case. Your request is denied. We're going to proceed.
That's fine, Judge.
It doesn't matter if it's fine to you or not, Mr. Cox. I'm going to direct you now to stop your sidebar comments and allow this proceeding to continue. And if you step out of line one more time, Mr. Cox, with your comments, I will hold you in contempt of court, and I'll ask Deputy Ramos to take you into custody. Do you understand me, sir?
I understand you, Judge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox.
God damn.
Mr. Delgado, you may resume your direct examination of your witness, Officer Wright.
Yes, Judge, thank you. Judge, I would ask again for the terms and conditions of community supervision, deferred adjudication, also known as State's Exhibit 1, to be admitted.
Mr. Delgado, were those documents shared with Mr. Cox either today or at a prior time from your records?
They had been forwarded to Mr. Cox over the break, ma'am.
And the court will take judicial notice of this defendant's file, in which those conditions of probation can be found filed with the court and as public record. So they are admitted. You may proceed, Mr. Delgado.
I speak, Judge.
No, Mr. Cox. You may proceed, Mr. Delgado.
Thank you, Judge. ADA Pena will be screen sharing a State's Exhibit 1 for you, Mr. Wright. Now, Mr. Wright, when it comes to State's Exhibit 1, can you kind of walk us through what we're seeing? It's listed as terms and conditions of community supervision. Can you kind of walk us through what this document is?
Sure. This document is the condition.
I object to the exhibit based on the fact that if this was going to be offered as exhibit, it should have been given to me. Somebody emailed it to me a couple of seconds ago. I didn't even have a chance to look at it. So my objection is that I'll object to it because I didn't have an opportunity to review it.
Mr. Cox, your objection is denied and overruled. I'm going to make a record of this now. These documents are part of your client's file. The file is public record. You were given these documents some time ago when you were appointed to represent this gentleman in today's proceeding. You have had these documents. They've been available to you and the public for review throughout the time that is lapsed from the time this was set to today. Your objection is overruled. And at this point, because I have already stated this once before you made the objection, if you're going to be redundant in your objections that I've already ruled on, I'm going to find your objections to be frivolous. And if that's the case, Mr. Cox, there will be more action after this hearing. I'm sure you're going to take your action. This court has remedies too for this type of attempted representation of this defendant. You may proceed, Mr. Delgado.
Yes, again, Mr. Wright, if you could just walk us through exactly what this document is.
This document is the conditions of probation that every person that's placed on probation receives after receiving probation. So that's all this is.
You scroll down to the bottom. And so when a person is placed on probation, Mr. Wright, do you go over this document with them?
When they are an inmate in court and they're placed on probation, then the CLO is responsible for going over the conditions of probation. I am the first person that goes over the conditions.
And is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes, it is.
And you would have gone over with the defendant in this case, those conditions.
Objection what? Leading.
Sustained. Mr. Delgado, please reframe your question. Do not lead your witnesses, please. This is your direct.
Yes, Judge. Mr. Wright, can you go over what your process is when you receive this document?
Yes. Actually, I'm the one that create the document. I type it up in court, and then I take it over to the inmate, and I go through conditions 1 through 13, which is on the first page, and then typically 14 through however many conditions are ordered. Then I go over those conditions, and then I ask the inmate, do you understand it? I get his address, his phone number, any other pertinent information that we need with probation in order to contact them. And then I have the defendant sign it, and then I sign it, and then I present it to the judge, and the judge signs it, and then it goes into the court's clerk's file.
Okay. And who signed this document?
The defendant or the probationer signs it, and then me, the CLO, signs it, and then the judge signs it.
And where is that signature on this form?
Which one?
First, your signature.
My signature is the bottom one, Gerald W. Wright.
And
Correct.
where's probationers?
The probationers is right above that.
And where would the judges be?
It's on the first page, middle right-hand side, right there, ma'am. The second page, I'm sorry, right above our signatures.
And what was the date that this document was signed?
March 14th, 2018.
And where does this form state the probationer's name?
There you go, right there. Right there, I acknowledge receipt of a copy of the conditions of the supervision.